$9.99 setup fee. BT customers can upgrade with BT Plus. BT, be there.
New customers, CPI increase starting 2020. $44.49 a month from month 19, up to 3 discs to guarantee Wi-Fi or £20 off your bill.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC.
Well, welcome back. We're asking tonight, are the losses of the two main parties in the local elections down to Brexit failings? And if you want to join the conversation, please call 0345 6060973. And we've had a text from Ben in Brighton who says, "Good evening, Jacob. I believe that the Liberal Democrats did so well in the local elections because people wanted to make a protest vote against the Conservatives and Labour about the betrayal of Brexit. I guarantee that the Liberal Democrats will not be saying that people should vote again in the seats that they have won, as they want us to do with Brexit." Ben from Brighton. That's a very good point, Ben. I don't think they'll be asking for a second set of local elections in a few weeks. But Phil in Potters Bar is a first-time caller. Phil, do you think it was down to Brexit or bins?
Yeah, no question it was down to Brexit, Jacob. Good evening. One question for you. Theresa May has come out after the results of these local elections and said it sends us one clear message, and the message is get on with it. Now, all three of the Brexit-supporting parties, UKIP, Tories and Labour, have all suffered heavy losses. So how has she arrived at that conclusion when, in fact, it shows the exact opposite?
Well, I think it depends what it is, doesn't it? That I think what a lot of people who support Brexit want is not her vision of Brexit, and is certainly not something cooked up between her and Jeremy Corbyn.
But would you not have expected the three who actually, would like to leave the EU to have done slightly better? Because you look at it at least on the face value, and you say, well, all the parties that appear to want to stay have done well, and all those who appear to want to leave, under whatever flavour, have done badly. Therefore, perhaps this is something else. Perhaps this is a cry that they want to look at it again.
I'd be very surprised if that were the case, because bear in mind the Brexit Party didn't stand. UKIP has lost Nigel Farage, and therefore its greatest appeal, and has got Tommy Robinson instead. So that's changed the whole
I agree, they're damaged.
view of UKIP. And that lots of Brexiteers wouldn't vote for the Conservatives because they felt we hadn't delivered Brexit. Ditto Labour, that Labour did badly in its northern heartlands where there was a high Brexit vote. Why? Because they failed to deliver. So I think it's a protest rather than a pro-EU vote.
Yeah, I accept it's a confused message. There's one other question I had for you, Jacob, actually. This has been sort of bothering me for a little while. Now, I think we all understand there are many ways to leave the EU, from the variant that, obviously the ERG would like, which is, what they call a hard Brexit, however you wish to choose it. But it occurs to me that I appreciate 52% of people voted to leave, but how can we be so sure that 52% of people wanted a hard Brexit? Because even if there's a handful in there who would actually, when given the choice of a hard Brexit, as their version of leave that they're going to get, if they would actually rather stay than leave, then surely that says we ought to go back with a more specific question and really make sure we're doing the right thing. This is for the next 40 years, after all. Why are leavers so scared of going back and getting that confirmation that, yes, there really is a majority for a hard Brexit?
Well, I think the term hard Brexit isn't helpful because that's a matter of degree and of opinion, and that what you've got to bear in mind is that the literature that the government sent out was quite clear. That leaving the European Union meant leaving the customs union and leaving the single market. So that was advertised before the vote. People knew what leaving meant. Then you've got the terms of the deal, and of course in the terms of the deal, it takes two to tango. That's a negotiation between the EU and the UK, and that can't merely be determined by us or by what we want, and therefore that was never something that could be settled in the referendum. And I don't think people who voted to leave are afraid of a second referendum. They just note that the only people who want a second referendum are those who lost, the sort of losers vote, and that the first referendum needs to be implemented before you should reverse it. That absolutely I accept that in a generation people may want to rejoin the EU. That's a reasonable thing to do. But as in Scotland, where the vote was for a generation, I think the vote was for a generation, not just for a few years until campaigners bored on long enough to try and get a second vote, which as it happens, I think they'd lose again.
Yeah, I agree. Although sadly, I think if we leave the EU, the argument for them to have another referendum becomes a lot stronger. It becomes harder to refuse. So
well, time will tell. Phil, thank you. I know you're a first-time caller, so I hope you'll call again. I'm going to go to Lynn in Bristol, because you're not very far away from me in North East Somerset. Lynn, what's your thought this evening?
Evening, Jacob. Yes, I feel like one of the voiceless ones now. I feel that we were given a voice. We were asked to make a decision in 2016 to stay in or to leave the EU, and we decided to leave the EU, not by a huge margin, but we still decided to do that. I'm a firm Brexit supporter, but had the vote gone the other way, I would have just sucked at it and accepted the result. And I feel that at the moment, I don't have anybody representing me to such an extent that although I'm a lifelong Conservative supporter, for the first time in my life, I actually voted for a party that I don't like. I voted UKIP because there was no Brexit representative in my area. I voted UKIP not because I wanted UKIP to get in. In fact, I was pretty certain that the UKIP candidate wouldn't get in because of where we live.
Where do you live? I've got you down as being in Bristol, which didn't have elections. So are you in fact in North Somerset?
No, I'm actually in South Gloucestershire.
You're South Gloucestershire, right. Yeah.
As I said, I voted UKIP because I knew they wouldn't get in, but I couldn't think of any other way to make my protest known. I didn't want to spoil my ballot paper because I was afraid that people wouldn't take any notice of it. They would just say, "Oh well, it's another spoiled one." The only way that I felt I could have my voice heard at all was to vote for a party that I really don't like, and I think that's very sad.
I think a lot of people did that. I mean, I think that, well, I certainly know of people who voted Lib Dem who are staunch Brexiteers because it was the only way of showing their irritation with the Conservatives.
Yeah.
Lynn, thank you very much for calling. I'm going to go a bit further away from Somerset now to Dexter in Edinburgh. Good evening, Dexter.
Hello, Jacob. I just want to comment on the council elections. I'm pleased that the Conservative Party got a good kicking, as did the Labour Party. I think they thoroughly deserve it, but I don't think it's enough. I really don't. I think they'll continue as they've done in the past to try to do what they want to do, but put some gloss on it, which gives the appearance that they're doing that when they're actually just doing their own thing.
So Dexter, do you think the vote was about Brexit, or do you think it was about local matters? Do you want the Tories and Labour given a kicking generally because of other reasons, or why was this vote today or yesterday as it was?
Well, I think this is something that is definitely a protest against the way Brexit has been dealt with by the main parties, and I think it's long overdue. I think we've been waiting for a chance. I didn't vote, but I would have loved to have the chance to do that, which is why I'll be voting for the Brexit Party in the coming EU elections and in the following general election. I don't think it's just about Brexit, man. I think that my concerns about, and I'm a Conservative voter, my concerns about the Conservative Party is that I just don't recognise it as being a Conservative Party. Its values are nothing like what I've been brought up with. I mean, we have soldiers who have been prosecuted by, ex-soldiers have been prosecuted by the state, by the courts, while the IRA get free passes from Tony Blair. Our financial, the way we handle our finances is almost Labour-like, the way we just adopt these deficits and just pile up our debts. Our borders, we should be proud to be British and to be looking after our borders, and I mean all these things are what I consider to be Conservative values, but I don't recognise it in today's Conservative Party.
Dexter, I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I'd encourage you to buy a copy of the Daily Telegraph tomorrow because I've got an article there which I think you might agree with. Thank you for calling. I'm going to go to Julie in Coventry. Julie, hello. Do you think it was down to Brexit, or do you think that it was the bins after all?
Well, I think it was to Brexit, but I would love to know how many sport ballot papers there were. I wish they would publish that, because that would give a better idea of how many, because on Twitter there's loads of people I've seen that have posted their sport ballot papers with Brexit written across and so forth. But what I actually rang up to say was about Theresa May's EU withdrawal treaty. She still, when I listened to her talking today, sounded as though that was the way forward, she thought. And I just groaned. I thought, what is it going to take for this woman to realise this is not a Brexit? that any Brexiteer agrees with.
Julie, you're absolutely right, and she seems to think some cobbled-together deal with the Labour Party is what people voted for yesterday. No, they didn't. They said they were angry with the two main parties for failing. And I think it's for the birds that some deal cobbled together in a back room between Jeremy Corbyn and Mrs May is going to meet the demands of Brexiteers.
It needs... I feel at a loss on how to stop it, because she's just so focused and she's blinkered. And it's not working well for Brexit. If she gets this deal through, she didn't think the country will be happy. The country will be furious, or I'll be furious as a Brexiteer.
Yeah, well, I think you're absolutely right, Julie. Thank you for calling. We're getting texts and tweets coming in like wildfire. Michael Whitmarsh has sent a message to say, I don't believe a great many voted for a particular party or councillor, more so against the Conservatives in line with Brexit affairs. With whom lies the responsibility, lies the toll. A great pity councillors paid that toll. I voted Conservative, still have faith and will continue to do so. So thank you, Michael. But another text says, I voted against the Conservatives locally purely because of my discontent with the party and Theresa May. It's unfortunate for the councillors, but the message had to be sent. After the break, we're going to speak to somebody from Crewkerne, one of Somerset's prettiest villages, but currently you're listening to Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC. It's 6:30 and time for the news with Lisa Aziz.
The Conservatives and Labour have suffered heavy losses in English local council elections, with a Brexit backlash being blamed. The Tories have now lost more than 1,000 seats, while the Lib Dems say they have the most to celebrate so far, gaining more than 570 councillors. One of the women whose body was found in a freezer in a flat in East London has been identified as a mother of three who's been missing for a year. Scotland Yard says work had been ongoing to find 38-year-old Mirikan Mustafa. Two bodies were discovered in Canning Town a week ago. There's been another climate change protest in central London this afternoon. This time a group of 8 16 to 20-year-olds have chained themselves to a fence outside Parliament. They've attached bike locks around their necks to the railings there. LBC weather, showers clearing across most of southern England, Wales and Northern Ireland through tonight. Colder conditions further north, a low of -1.
LBC at the weekend. Matt Fry.
I know you're one of those people who want to revoke Article 50, is that right? Right.
Mr. Davis said we would have the exact same benefits from outside.
Whatever you say about what was first posited in the referendum, that you want to revoke an article which would go against the very grain of this enormous democratic exercise that was the referendum. That is politically explosive.
Leading Britain's conversation. Matt Fry. Saturday mornings from 10 on LBC.
If you're going on a road trip this spring, pop into Quick Fit first. With our range of free safety checks, we'll look over your tyres, brakes, battery and more to make sure your car is ready for the big getaway. Book online or head down to your local Quick Fit today and drive away happy.
Hiya! Did you know this Saturday Lotto is boosting your bank holiday weekend? Just match 3 balls to win £100. Oh, I really do like that. The Lotto Bank Holiday event. Don't miss out. That's lucky, right?
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Prizes fixed, subject to capping. See website for details. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
The great British weather. One day you're cozying in with the family, the next you're chilling out in the garden. But whatever you're doing, Trusted Trader are always on hand to help. TrustedTrader.com have lots of really lovely tradespeople who are vetted, reviewed and reliable, unlike the weather. So for roofers who stop the rain coming in, gardeners for when the sun comes out, and other professionals in their trade, simply visit TrustedTrader.com.
Buying workshop delights and travelling to meetings off-site. Fancy client biscuits, last-minute train tickets, light bulbs, booking flights, meeting snacks, black cabs. You do the maths. Say hello to Soldo. All expenses paid. Prepaid business expense cards for you and your team, so you can decide who can spend what, where. And no one has to spend their own money at work. A win-win for you and your business. Sign up for free at soldo.com. Terms and conditions and card delivery fees apply.
There's more to Volvo than meets the eye. Beyond our history of world-first safety innovations, we've evolved to bring you a multi-award-winning range on a mission to make life that little less complicated. see how simple Scandinavian design delivers an intuitive driving experience. Connect, control, and be entertained by technology designed around you. Feel inspired by the innovation that drives Volvo. It's all there for you to experience at the Volvo Evolved Showcase from the 11th to 12th of May at your local retailer, with offers across the range. Register today at volvoevolved.co.uk.
Have you discovered Karcher's most advanced pressure washers? With Karcher's Full Control Plus technology, you can select the perfect setting for every cleaning task with just a touch of a button. What's more, until the 31st of May, you can claim up to £50 cash back on our Full Control Plus pressure washers. Visit your local B&Q, Screwfix or Wickes and get yours today. Terms and conditions apply. Visit karcher.co.uk to find out more.
Jacob Rees-Mogg on LBC.
Well, welcome back. We've been discussing whether the losses for the two main parties in the local elections are down to Brexit failings, and the overwhelming consensus of people who've been in touch is that yes, it is. This was a vote on Brexit, not the bins, and I certainly think that it's the failure of the Prime Minister to deliver on all those things that she said, that no deal's better than a bad deal, Brexit means Brexit, we'd be out of the customs union and the single market, and perhaps most crucially, that we were going to leave on the 29th of March. The other key news story this week has been about Mrs May herself, of course, and was what I thought we might have been discussing today, but the local elections have rather trumped it, and that is the sacking of Gavin Williamson and Huawei. That it seems to me it's completely missed the point. As Nick Ferrari has pointed out in his excellent show, which I appear on occasionally, that it doesn't matter where this story came from. What matters is whether we're alienating our closest defence allies and potentially putting at risk our communication system by being involved with a Chinese company that is closely linked to the Chinese government. And I worry about the defence of the realm much more than I do about whether somebody said something marginally indiscreet. Of course, people shouldn't leak from meetings, but this government's been the leakiest government that anybody can think of. And why is it that there's a great leak inquiry and the Cabinet Secretary has a fit of the vapours when it's a bad policy decision that's been made, when it's his leak that the government's hysterical about a no-deal Brexit? There's no investigation then, is there? Nobody's held to account then, nobody's fired then. It's only when it's a duff policy decision that's been made that isn't approved of, or the leaking isn't approved of by the hierarchy, and then suddenly somebody has to be fired. So I think it's pretty shabby. I think Gavin's been treated poorly and unfairly and unjustly compared to other cabinet ministers, but that actually it's Huawei that we should be worried about in offending our American and Australian allies, not about a fantastic scoop that Stephen Swinford had in the Telegraph. Texts and tweets coming in. Rich in Leicester says, I had no choice but to spoil my ballot as there was no independent or Brexit alternative standing. But I kept Michael in Crewkerne waiting. Michael, thank you for calling us. Do you think it's down to Brexit or the bins?
Good evening, Jacob. It's down to Brexit, okay? I mean, just listening on the news there now that we've lost 1,000 seats. I stood for the local Crewkerne town council here, and my compadre Charles managed to get in only by a few votes. It's completely gone to the Liberal Democrats. And I have to say this, Theresa May has to go. I mean, when is she going to wake up and is she going to go walking this weekend, and think about it? 1,000 seats gone. Does that not tell you something?
And of hard-working councillors who rely on the leadership of the party to get routine policy decisions right and deliver on their promises, and they've been so let down.
Absolutely. I used to try and say to people, I said, look, you've got the MPs in Westminster, and I take you out of this one, also Boris and a few others, who haven't listened to what we want. They've gone off. We voted 17.5 million out. So Mrs May just got to go. Get someone in who can grow a pair, all right, and get the job done.
And somebody who believes in Brexit, because we need to embrace Brexit as a positive rather than trying to pretend that it's a problem that needs to be managed away.
No, and I think someone like yourself, Boris, when I lived in London, Boris was then the mayor of London, And I've got to say, everyone says he's a fool, he's a buffoon. No, he's not. He'd done a damn good job, I thought, for the London Assembly there. So, yeah, he'd have my vote, no trouble.
Michael, I agree with you. Thank you for your commitment to the Conservative Party, which is much appreciated and the backbone of how our party works. But it wasn't a good day in Somerset, particularly for the Conservatives, was it? We had particularly tough results. But thank you for calling. I'm going to go to Stephen in Woking. Stephen, do you think it's Brexit or the bins?
I do think it's Brexit, but not in the same way that you do. So I would have voted Labour had they unequivocally backed a second referendum, but because they didn't, I voted Lib Dems. So I would do anything to stop Brexit. Mm-hmm. I think it'll be disastrous for the country, and it'll be disastrous for me personally and for my business. So I voted Lib Dems. I would have backed Labour, as I said, but I chose not to because they didn't come out in favour of a second referendum.
But I don't disagree with you. I think it's Brexit in both directions. I think that primarily from a Conservative point of view, it's Leavers who weren't going to back a party that had failed to deliver. But the Labour Party, in a way, is more interesting because they've done poorly in the north of England, and it looks there as if it's their Leave voters who won't go with them. But what you're saying, I think, is also an effect for them, that their Remain voters, primarily in the south, also feel that Labour isn't in the right position, and that sitting on the fence has meant that they've lost supporters in both directions. Do you think that's fair?
Definitely, and I have a lot of colleagues who've done exactly the same as me in the past couple of days.
What is your business, just out of interest?
I run my own consulting company, IT consulting.
So are these colleagues in IT consulting that you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I've benefited from freedom of movement. I lived for 20 years in other EU countries, and the technical and language skills I developed have enabled me to set up my own business. Most of my consulting, most of my business today comes from other EU countries, particularly from Germany. Most of my work's in Germany, and if we leave, especially with no deal, I will have no choice.
But what were your colleagues saying? Because you were going to say the view of your colleagues, what they were saying about today's result.
Well, exactly the same. They would have backed Labour had they come out in favour of a second referendum. One of my colleagues lives in Ealing, that is a Labour area. He has voted for Lib Dems and a lot of others as well.
Well,
because Labour were not unequivocal in their backing for a second referendum. They tried to be everything to everybody, and in doing so, they fudged it.
Join me, James O'Brien, for my new podcast series, Full Disclosure. In the latest episode, I sit down with Steve Coogan. Listen and subscribe now on the LBC app or Global Player.
At QuickFit, we want you to have complete peace of mind. That's why right now, we're giving away a free dashcam worth $79.99 to every customer who buys 2 or more Michelin tyres. Just book online or head down to your local QuickFit today and drive away happy with a free dashcam. For terms and conditions, visit quickfit.com.
Buying workshop delights and travelling to meetings off-site. Fancy client biscuits, last-minute train tickets, light bulbs, booking flights, meeting snacks, black cabs. You do the maths. Say hello to Soldo. All expenses paid. Prepaid business expense cards for you and your team. So you can decide who can spend what, where. And no one has to spend their own money at work. A win-win for you and your business. Sign up for free at soldo.com. Terms and conditions and card delivery fees apply.
Oh, Wi-Fi's rubbish!
As a parent, nothing strikes fear into you like those words coming down the stairs. What can you do about a dodgy Wi-Fi signal? Turns out quite a lot. Because with BT Complete Wi-Fi, only we guarantee a signal in every room. So it's game on for Billy in his bedroom, and you win precious dad points. It's $39.99 a month on an 18-month contract with $29.99 setup fee. BT customers can upgrade with BT Plus. BT, be there.
New customers, CPI increase starting 2020. $44.49 a month from month 19, up to 3 discs to guarantee Wi-Fi or £20 off your bill.
Oh, next door, having another barbecue. Oh, and it smells amazing.
Fired up for a bank holiday barbecue feast? Get to B&Q. We've a massive range of charcoal and gas barbecues, including the Rockwell 200 charcoal barbecue for just £83. It'll easily feed up to 8 people. You can do it when you B&Q it.
Hiya! Did you know this Saturday Lotto is boosting your bank holiday weekend? Just match 3 balls to win £100. Oh, I really do like that. The Lotto Bank Holiday event. Don't miss out. Ah, that's lucky, right?
Lotto from the National Lottery. Amazing starts here. Prizes fixed, subject to capping. See website for details. Rules and procedures apply. Players must be 16 or over.
You've got plenty going on between now and August the 29th, so here's the question. Do you have the time to make a PPI claim before then? If not, don't panic, because here at the Claims Guys, we do have the time and the experience to manage the claims process for you. So if you've got more important things to do than manage a PPI claim, just text ANSWER to 66777. Text ANSWER to 66777 now.
The Claims Guys.
Alternatively, you can complain free to your lender or the Financial Ombudsman.
It's hard to put your finger on what makes a Mini. The iconic design? Unique handling? But what really makes you smile is just its, well, sheer mininess. Get your Mini 3-door Hatch 1 Classic with LED lights and 6.5-inch infotainment screen for only $199 per month. Search Mini offers to find out more. Who's in? Mini UK is a credit broker. £2,000 initial rental. 48-month hire agreement from Mini Financial Services. Subject to status and availability. For new vehicles ordered by 30th June 2019 and registered by 30th September 2019 UK only. Guarantees may be required. Mileage and other conditions apply when you return the vehicle. T's and C's apply.
In the Bank Holiday sale at Oak Furnitureland, it's all solid hardwood, all delivered free, and all with big savings. There's a store near you, and it all ends Monday.
The headlines. The Conservatives and Labour have suffered heavy losses in the English local council elections, while the Liberal Democrats, Greens and independent candidates have seen a surge in support. Police have now identified one of the women found dead in a freezer in a flat in East London last week as 38-year-old Mirikan Mustafa. And as we wait for news on the royal baby, Kensington Palace has announced Prince Harry won't now be going on his planned trip to Amsterdam next week. LBC weather. Showers clearing across most of southern England, Wales and Northern Ireland through tonight. Colder further north, a low of -1.
LBC Travel, I'm Dave Goff. There are severe delays on the A1M northbound from Junction 2 for Welham Green to Junction 4 for Welwyn Garden City after there was an accident earlier on and because a car has now broken down. It's very slow on the M25 clockwise from Junction 21 for the M1 to Junction 25 for Enfield after an accident earlier on. All the lanes are open there. Anti-clockwise on the M25, it's taking around half an hour to queue to the Dartford Tunnel from Junction 3 for the M20. There are queues on the A13 into town. A lane stays closed because of an accident after the Canning Town flyover. And on the trains, Greater Anglia and TfL Rail have delays of around 40 minutes and cancellations between Liverpool Street and Shenfield after an investigation earlier on at Romford.
This is LBC.
Andrew Pearce with you, a little earlier than normal. I'm normally with you from 7 till 10. You've got me for an extra 15 minutes because sadly the line's gone down with Jacob Rees-Mogg. We'll try and get it back, but in the meantime, if you trust me, I'll carry on taking his calls. And Nick is calling from Radlett. Nick, I'm sorry it's not Jacob Rees-Mogg. Can you bear to put up with me?
If I'm going to lose, I think, some of the impact of the call because I'm not enjoying Jacob's tone of voice this evening about losing 1,000 Tory councillors and him showing zero remorse.
That's interesting. You think he should have been contrite on bended knee? Because are you blaming him for part of the reason, or of all the reason why the Tories have done so badly?
Well, my dad is, or was, until last night, a very hard-working Tory councillor in Bushy North.
Right.
So serving his constituents faithfully and, incredibly well. And found himself last night losing out to 3 Liberal Democrat candidates. He took all 3 Tory seats.
Yeah.
I have to say there were more spoiled ballots than there were anything else. And if, Jacob has ignored 3-line whips to vote in favour of a Brexit deal, which if it had been done, would have meant, no doubt, my father continuing his good work for his constituents. So, whilst I'm delighted to speak to you, I just find the fact that he's so glibly enjoying what seems to have been a disastrous night for his party is, it takes the biscuit, really.
Well, I can tell you, Nick, it's the worst night the Tory party has had at local elections since 1995. And if you remember what happened in 1997, just 2 years later, they lost by Blair to a landslide. So if history is going to repeat itself, whoever takes over from Mrs May, and let's be honest, it's going to have to be someone soon, they're heading for a massive, massive defeat. Well,
and I think Jacob and his ERG group bear a huge amount of of guilt for that, personally. You don't, you join a political party, and if you have a three-line whip, you vote in favour.
Well,
if that had happened, this would not have happened. So,
Nick,
yeah,
I've got good news for you. We've got Jacob Rees-Mogg back. I'm going to hand over to him, and you can get stuck into him and enjoy it. Nick, good to talk to you. Jacob.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry about that. Something disconnected us from Somerset, London. I assume it's not Huawei. But Nick, hello. What are you saying? You're having a go at the ERG. Far away.
Yeah, I am, Jacob. But you sound, considering you're a lifelong Tory supporter, we've just lost 1,000 seats, and you're showing no remorse whatsoever for ignoring three-line whips. My father, who lost his seat last night to the Liberal Democrats as a result of absolute Brexit, and you seem to be almost rejoicing in the fact that the Tories have had their worst night since 1995.
Well,
I think it's awful.
I'm certainly not rejoicing. I think it's very bad news for local government, and it's terrible for councillors like your father involved. And in my area, Bath and North East Somerset, we've had very bad results, and that's of no benefit to the country or the local community. But the defence I'd make of the ERG is we were sticking to our manifesto commitments, and we expect the government that we support to do what it said in its manifesto.
Well, I understand that, but what's become apparent is, notwithstanding that, you vote fast and voted in favour the last time round. So, you're clearly, I understand the first protest, but the country is a mess. Everything is on hold. We've got decimated the local elections, and it's about time you lot in Parliament got back into the real world and sorted this out. It's like we've had an extension till Halloween, and everybody's just gone off on holiday and nothing's happening. Enough.
You're quite right. Nothing has happened since we've had the extension, but we should have left on the 29th of March, and that was the problem.
Didn't. So what's happening now?
I'm aware of that, but the Prime Minister promised we would leave on the 29th of March, and that's why I think the responsibility lies with her for failing to deliver.
Well, I think the responsibility lies with the parties for failing to deliver. And if you had followed a three-line whip as you should have done, we would have left on the day you wanted to leave.
Well, we wouldn't, unfortunately, because even when I did, there still wasn't a majority for it in Parliament.
No, but if you had in the first time, we would have done. If the Conservative Party had taken the whip in total,
we still wouldn't have got it through because the DUP weren't able to accept the backstop, which splits the United Kingdom.
There were 8 Labour voters who were quite happy to vote with the government. So I disagree with you.
I think it would have been very hard to get through because there were Remainers in the Tory party who were never going to vote for it, and I think you're not counting those who made up for the Labour ones who voted for it. So. I think we should have left on the 29th, what the Prime Minister promised. Her deal was a rubbish deal, and the only reason I came round to it is I came to the conclusion it would be worse.
We had the ability to shape the ongoing deal once we leave. If we never leave, we'll never get past that point.
Well, that's why I came round to it in the end, but I made the mistake of believing the Prime Minister when she said that we would leave on the 29th of March, and that was such a thorough commitment that it seemed that we ought to have done so with or without a deal. And regrettably, when she said it, it turned out she didn't mean it. Anyway, thank you for calling. I'm sorry I wasn't able to take your call at the beginning. We've had one text from Ian Dennis in Bristol, who says it's not about it is about the bins, not Brexit. He's in Bristol where they can't even get the bins right. Ian, that's a great point to have made, so thank you. Another text saying the Liberals only did well because it was a protest vote. A poor one, I know. We have lost confidence in all of Parliament except the few that want the same Brexit we voted for. So that's from Tanis Pullin in Oxfordshire. And so the message is coming in, but we've got David in Strangford in Northern Ireland. David, you've had local election results in Northern Ireland today.
Yes, Jacob. I was a long-standing Conservative voter, but then I moved. I've had this so-called yuppie flu, chronic ME for nearly 30 years. So as a result of which I moved back to where my parents lived in Northern Ireland, and I now live in sleepy Strangford down by the Irish Sea. I just wanted to say, I used to work for Deutsche Bank, and when I got when I realised that there was the referendum and we were going to be leaving, I had always been very, very, what's the word, annoyed by the bureaucracy of Strasbourg, of the EEC Parliament, and all the little petty intrigue. But as I say, obviously I haven't been in that world for nearly 30 years, but when I got the little leaflet saying what leaving meant, but I, like I think a lot of other people, were totally confused by the bus and the 364 million or whatever we were going to get for the NHS. Now, I think, quite honestly, there was lies told on both sides. There's all this intrigue about missing money, and I honestly feel that the only way you are going to get confidence back is to have another referendum, whatever the deal is, to see whether the people, you have said it was a protest vote. I don't agree. I think a lot of people who voted to leave would now change their mind and vote to remain. Because I saw a slogan that said, would you vote to be poorer? And we've had enough with austerity, so I really don't believe that now we've got the facts, that if you had another referendum, and you might well be right, and we voted then to leave, and the deal went through, that's fine. But at least give us a chance, because I felt I was very misled by the bus.
But we wouldn't be having a second referendum if we'd voted to remain, would we?
No, but the point that, well, yes...
Yeah, well, you see, so it's pretty one-sided. The losers get a vote, but the winners just get discounted.
What I'm basically saying is there was lies told on both sides, and now we know more of the truth. So if we started again, I agree with you, quite honestly, if we'd have known all the facts and all the ins and outs of all this, I think a lot of people better informed now would maybe make the same decision, but might make a different decision. And I think with all the problems we've had, we should at least have that choice.
I think voters vote on the information that they have and make considered decisions, as they do at general elections, and that you have to implement what people vote for. You can't just change it because you've changed your mind, you don't like the result. I think it's not democratic.
65 million for the National Health.
Well, the government's provided the money for the National Health Service before we've even left, so that's a promise that's been delivered on. It was a really important campaign, and it made people think that was money worth spending. It's happened.
So you're telling me that we're spending, but we haven't even left.
And the government has decided to find that money because it was clear that people wanted that money, which we will save once we've left the European Union. So this is happening. It's being delivered on. So it seems to me that the promises that were made by the Leave campaign were realistic.
Can I ask you very quickly, just to sum something up for me, why are you so sure it's going to be better for us to be, forgetting about the fact of doing our own laws, I would just love to know, why do you think it would be better for us to be independent rather than be part of a big unit? Just tell me, please, because you've done something now by telling me that apparently this money is going into the National Health, or will be when we leave.
I'll tell you if you draw breath before we run out of time. The truth is that democracy is the key to this, that how people vote should determine their government. It shouldn't be done by how people vote in other countries, and it shouldn't be done by unelected bureaucrats. That's the key thing. The other is that once we're out, we no longer have to protect inefficient continental industries, so we can have cheaper food, clothing and footwear, benefiting the least well off in our society the most. So those are two good reasons for going. Chris in Richmond, can I squeeze you in before we run out of time? Chris?
Yes, several points, Jacob. Firstly, your own quote from 24th of October 2011, we could have two referendums as it happens. It might make more sense.
Yeah, we've discussed that a million times. Do listen to the whole speech. I'm going to go to Shane in Herne Bay, who might be slightly more interesting. Shane, hello.
Oh, hello. Jacob, how are you?
Very well, thank you. And you?
Yes, very well indeed. Jacob, I'm so frustrated. I'm a staunch Brexiteer, and I feel we have been absolutely betrayed, and I'm sick to death of people telling me I didn't know what I was voting for. I knew exactly what I was voting for then, and in the words of our Prime Minister, nothing has changed. And I do wish that people like yourself, who have enormous sway, not only within the ERG, the Conservative Party, but with the public at large, that you don't articulate more clearly that we are not comparing the EU situation as it is now, but we are on a road to somewhere that is absolutely different to what it is now. And that, I feel is not articulated, it is not made clear, and that is hugely frustrating. One of the many frustrations.
It's a very good point, Shane, and it's one I will try to make because you're right. The EU is evolving since we voted to leave, and I'm going to squeeze in one more caller, Eddie in Bedford. Eddie, do you think it's down to Brexit?
Yeah, I do accept it's down to Brexit. I really feel so. That's actually how I voted, my wife and I. I just have a question, though, Jacob, and thanks for taking my call. What next? What's going to happen now? Definitely, I don't think this is going to work out with Labour and everything. What are we waiting on? What are we all waiting on from Conservatives? What plans do you have with Theresa? Is it that we're waiting until she resigns? Or, and if she doesn't, what happens?
I have a nasty feeling that the Tories and Labour may cobble together a May Corbyn deal, and I don't think that's a great idea. But time is against us. Thank you for all your calls. I'm sorry I got cut off in my prime, but coming up at 10, it's Nick Abbott. Next, you've already had a sneak preview. It's the great Andrew Pearce, who kindly stood in for me whilst the gremlins were in the way. Andrew, over to you.
And Jacob, I was